Hello again. Chris Lee, Max Barr, Blake Lovell of Southeastern 16 here with Power Rankings. I think this is the third edition. Let's get right into it. Starting at the bottom, Max, please reveal number 16. That is the Oklahoma Sooners, who are 4-0. Not always been pretty, but OU has been undefeated despite a key injury, Max.
3-0. That is not 4-0 yet. 3-0.
Sorry.
But yes. 3 wins against some really low competition. Lindenwood, Northwestern State, and Stetson, all in the bottom 100 of the nation. And they don't have Bryson Godine, one of their better shooters. So it's kind of hard to, kind of figure out what this team's going to look like against higher competition. We do learn some things in 2 weeks, not this next week. We have a game against East Texas A&M, I believe, who's one of the worst teams in the nation. So it's not really, they haven't really done anything to be like, let's knock them, but they also haven't done anything to step up. And a lot of the other teams in this conference have already faced some higher competition. So they land here down at the bottom.
Our number 15 team, the only two-loss team, the South Carolina Gamecocks. Blake Lovell, the respect for Follow the Mont Paris is already starting. Disrespect.
Well, I mean, they've lost 2 games, so I mean, I don't know if I'd call it disrespect. I think it's just the fact that they're 2-2, and one of those losses was at home to, like we said, a good North Florida squad. But still, if you're comparing them to a lot of other teams, I think even Oklahoma would say, well, why are we sitting here at 16 and South Carolina's at 14 or 15 when they have 2 losses? Maybe hard to necessarily argue that, but yeah, I mean, the game in Indiana we said would be tough. It was tough, and they wound up losing that game by 16 or whatever. Indiana was kind of in control there, and it's about what you expected. I think you just let's be honest, we're all thinking the same thing. How many games South Carolina going to win and or be within 10 points of the other team if Colin Murray-Boyles has 2 points? Obviously fouls out, only plays 19 minutes. It's just not going to happen. So he's the key to their season. He's the key to them rising up the rankings. And right now, this is kind of where they sit and play Mercer this week. And from there, we'll kind of see a couple other interesting non-conference games. But beyond that, that was certainly, their biggest opportunity, at least on paper, was at Indiana. So
Number 14, the Vanderbilt Commodores, who picked up a win over an ACC team last week, Max, that, as you pointed out pre-show, looks like a little better win than it maybe did a few days ago.
Cal's not an ACC team, folks. Don't anybody kid yourself here.
That's what it says in the standings.
They're not an ACC team. Don't let anybody tell you that.
Chris, I'm gonna break the flow here and let you take the floor. You're our resident Vandy guy, and they've looked pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, look, some of those wins don't mean a lot, beating some bad teams, but when they played their biggest game, I thought they had their best performance of the season. The outside shooting starting to come a little bit. They've shown some little things here and there on defense. They can take care of the ball. We're going to find out next week how good they are. I think that trip to Charleston where the teams get better. But I think they've shown some signs of life after a program that started really slowly under Jerry Stackhouse. Mark Byington's got them 4-0, and that's all you can ask.
There you go.
All right, number 13. We're going to have to turn this over to our man, Blake Lovell.
Here's the thing, is anytime you go out and you beat a team by whatever the number was, it took us a while to get the math right.
72.
Mississippi Valley State win 72 points. You've got to at least have some movement here in the rankings, and I don't even know if they moved up or down. I couldn't tell you based on last week, but the way I see it is they came out, they proved a point. Texas only beat Mississippi Valley State by 46, so the fact that Missouri beat them by 72, that means Missouri minus 26 based on my math against Texas is your opening spread on that one. But in all seriousness, again, they needed a win like that. You'll take that for a team that had a 20-game losing streak or whatever it was going back to last season. Now they've won 3 in a row. They're streaking. And now get ready to host the Pacific Tigers on whatever day that is, Friday, who, of course, Pacific's going to play Arkansas tonight. So we'll be able to set another opening line between Missouri and Arkansas based on the results of these 2 games. So
Yeah, well, before we get there, because boy, is it going to get interesting. We remind you, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA, head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Max, do we really just do comparative scoring with Mississippi Valley State?
Yes, we did.
I mean, can we,
Chris, how many
can
other
we,
games this season have you seen a team win or lose 111-39? The most dominant performance we've seen in the sport in 24-25. And you're going to undersell it. Come on.
I want to see you now like transitive property Missouri like to number one based on
Iowa State. We've already done that.
Valley
Iowa State beat Mississippi Valley State by 39. Missouri minus whatever that number is, 34, 32, 33. Set the line right now. I'm all in on Iowa State plus 33 if that happens. So,
Oh, God.
anyways.
There we
All
go.
right, who's next? Georgia, you're next. I thought Georgia looked pretty good against Florida State, guys. I like the backcourt depth.
Georgia Tech?
Georgia Tech, whoever.
Wrong
Somebody
ACC
else in this
team. You're thinking about
countdown
Cal.
beat Florida State. They could beat Florida State too. After what I said,
Stanford.
let's just if we're gonna go ahead and transitive property Missouri, to the Final Four, then we're just gonna find a way to give Georgia wins over Florida State too.
Jeez. You guys are nuts today. Georgia.
Just today?
Georgia. Well,
I think they
Jeez.
could also beat them in football. We'll just throw that in there.
my head is all over the place now. The Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia Bulldogs. They look good. Silas Demery had a great game. 7 rebounds from the guard position. I always love when the guards are rebounding. Went along with 18 points. The shooting is going to be a little bit up and down, I feel like. But I mean, other than that, I mean, what are you really, maybe a little bit of, I don't even think so. I'm trying to find things to knock this team for it right now, and I just can't. I mean, they're growing on me. The Georgia Bulldogs are growing on me. I don't know.
Sunday.
Nope.
You
Nope, we're
may
not
have a
doing
few
that.
things to knock them for, depending on what happens on Saturday and Sunday. They play Marquette and St. John. So, hey, Georgia, I think this week has the biggest chance for the most movement in our rankings. They play those two teams. What happens if Georgia sweeps the Golden Eagles and the Red Storm? Then Georgia's going to be storming up the rankings next week. So
I'll tell you what, he didn't have a good game against Georgia Tech, but Dakota LeFew is one of the
he's
more
fantastic.
he's very underrated. We didn't really give him enough credit in the offseason. He had a tough shooting night against Georgia Tech, but still turned in 5 rebounds, 11 points, got to the free throw line 7 times. Keep an eye on this team. I'm liking them.
I like their pieces. I mean, Asa Newell just brings a dimension that a lot of teams in this league aren't going to have. Their guards are old. They're not a great shooting team, but I think there's enough talent on that team to get where they need to go. How would they fare against Mississippi Valley State, you think, Blake?
Oh, good Lord.
all right. Number
Next
11.
team.
There's no selling that one. Here we go. Now we're talking, okay? The LSU Tigers, who
Boom.
LSU fans, we don't have many of them here at Southeastern 16, but maybe they're coming on in now because they want to tell us about their basketball team. And some people are trying to tell us that we were wrong about LSU coming to the season. Well, again, that's just a trend. We usually are wrong about teams coming to the season. A big win at Kansas State, as we talked about, whatever day that was. Now they're 3-0. They got Charleston Southern on Tuesday. Then they get a very exciting game against Pitt on Friday. That game in, where is it? I don't know where, in West Virginia somewhere. But yeah, so they're getting that game against Pitt, and again, that's another big opportunity for them. Getting a road win at Kansas State. I don't know how good Kansas State's going to be this season, but still, that's a road win, power conference team. Did it in impressive fashion. We talked about our guy Victorious Miller, Cam Carter, Jordan Sears, Damian Collins. LSU we mentioned last week, we talked about Georgia having a chance to move up the rankings. This was LSU's opportunity, and now here they are in a pretty good spot. And again, look pretty good now. So take those first couple results. We didn't know what to make of them, but after a win like that, you deserve the rise here, Tigers.
I think one of the most underrated things also, real quick on LSU, is their size and their depth of size. They crushed Kansas State on the rebounding, crushed them. And without Derek Fountain, they got 6'10 Jalen Reed, 6'10 Robert Miller, 6'8 Corey Chest, 6'9 Damian Collins. They're pretty physical.
Next up at number 10, the Ole Miss Rebels got a little healthier at guard over the weekend, which is something you wanted to see.
Yeah, and Colorado State, no slouch at all. That was a real good win. I think the spread on that was only about 4. I believe it was only 4. Yeah, and to get a 15-point win, led the entire game. Colorado State didn't lead for a second. That's a quality win. Still, the questions remain about the rebounding in the front court. But other than that, I mean, hey, you get Matt Morrell back. Dre Davis's ankle injury looks like it wasn't anything too serious. He puts in a good game. And Mississippi, 4-0, plugging along.
I wish I would have known that spread was 4 because I don't know what some people are looking at if that was the case. But Colorado State's not bad, but its spread should have been a little bit higher. But nonetheless, an impressive performance from Ole Miss. And, yeah, I mean, here's another team, like we said, that's kind of had a couple not so impressive performances against inferior teams, but that was probably their most impressive, performance to date if you just take out the first game, which they should have won by 30. But we mentioned they've got some interesting games coming up here too soon. Thanksgiving, play BYU. That should be a fun one.
All right, also playing in the same Memphis area venue over the weekend, Max Barr's Mississippi State Bulldogs, whose guards hung on for a nice win over Utah.
How about Josh Hubbard? I saw some posts on social media yesterday, meet Josh Hubbard. Like, this is, one of the most underrated guards in the nation. Are you kidding me? We've been on this guy since the first game at Mississippi State last year. If you don't know, now you know, as Dana White would say. How about Kashawn Murphy? These are my Mississippi State Bulldogs, but I've been a little bit worried about the front court. Kashawn Murphy, 14 rebounds. He's coming along real nice. And Nwoko, also 11 rebounds. That's all you need. Let the guards do their thing, and you don't even get anything from Claudell Harris. They're gonna. I mean, what if it wasn't Josh Hubbard? I think everyone else was. Oh, it was only 1 3 made. Other than Josh Hubbard, only one person made a 3. That's not gonna happen every game. I'm liking Mississippi State.
It may, but I think you look at like the road game they have coming up against SMU. Like these are kind of games like this Mississippi State team should win, just like that one was against Utah. You felt like they were the better team, and now it's like, all right, keep this thing going. Like go win at SMU on Friday. You should beat them. Won't be an easy game, but again, I think Mississippi State's a better team, and so those kind of things, right? And so I really like what I've seen from this team so far, and I joke about the 3-point shooting, but obviously they are going to have to rely a lot on Josh Hubbard for that, but still, they're a better shooting team than they were a year ago, and that's, I think for them to be in a good spot this year, we mentioned it's just a different dynamic. So, I think Mississippi State, very impressive so far.
Next up at number 8, they only beat Mississippi Valley State by 46 points. The Texas Longhorns, who also in their quiver of wins have Houston Christian and Chicago State. Boy, those are some real beautiful wins there. Also ahead on the schedule, Delaware State, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, New Orleans. I don't know what Rodney Terry was thinking in scheduling other than maybe we're going to take some losses in conference play. But, boy, there's some real net liabilities on this schedule potentially here with Texas.
Well, I mean, there is, but there's also huge opportunities. They play Syracuse, who they should beat in Brooklyn on Thursday. They get either St. Joe's or Texas Tech after that. But, they've got the true road game at NC State. They've got UConn at home. I mean, that's a massive game. So, I'm okay with Texas only beating Mississippi Valley State by 46 points, because I think they're going to be all right. Again, we're still waiting to see what happens with Tremont Mark when he comes back. I think that's obviously going to be a big boost for them. But yes, like they're going to beat up on a lot of not so great teams here over the next month or so. But they also have those again really interesting tests. I think that remember they've already dropped the Ohio State game, so like they need to win some of these games to have anything to go off of heading into conference play. But we also have talked about too, they're a team that has a pretty rough start to SEC play at A&M, home against Auburn, home against Tennessee. They're at Oklahoma, then at Florida. So their first 5 games, theoretically you could play for the top 5, 6 teams in the league, 2 of them on the road. So yeah, they need to win. They need to beat Syracuse on Thursday. They need to win the game after that, and then maybe try to sneak one out with NC State or UConn. But yeah, Texas is kind of where we thought they'd be right now, especially when they're missing one of their better players.
Out of 364 Division I teams, Texas's non-conference strength of schedule is 360. Only 4 teams in the nation have an easier non-conference. So take that what you will. But the reason I have Texas up here is because I think that first result's probably different if you have Tremont Mark. So
yeah, they've played 3 of the bottom 15 teams in KenPom in their 4 games, and they've got 3 more of the bottom 15 coming. I don't even know how you can do that. That's hard, difficult to do, but Texas did it. Yeah, but I mean, in all seriousness, I think what Blake said, get Tremont Mark back, let them play somebody, then we'll make a judgment. All right, number 7, Blake Lovell, the Arkansas Razorbacks. What do we have to say about the Razorbacks today?
Hang on, I need to look up your individual rankings here from you scoundrels because I'm curious where you had Arkansas. Let me just take a glimpse at what I'm seeing here. Okay, actually, never mind. All right, I thought I had a better point to make, but
he had them lowered his poll.
Looks like we were not that far off, all of us. But yeah, I mean Arkansas, like we said, they're 2-1. The game against Troy was sloppy at times. We mentioned all the missed opportunities against Baylor, and they've yet to put together just a full, complete performance, and I think that's fair to say. I think they'll be able to do that this week. You'll probably be a little concerned if they don't against either Pacific or Little Rock. But we've also mentioned injuries playing a role here too. Jonas Aidoo, the more he plays, the better they're going to be. So I'll just go back to my WIP. Work in progress for Arkansas. We knew it from the beginning. They're still there, and yeah, they don't really play a game of note, at least the way it looks on paper, until Thanksgiving. So should rack up some wins here, maybe get a little bit healthier the next week or so, and try to take off from there.
I'll tell you what, I like this Arkansas team as in like a few weeks with some really nice against the spread opportunities, just because I think they're really underrated right now with Johnell Davis being injured, Aidoo being injured. You only lose to Baylor by 5 and you shoot 5 of 20 from 3 in that game. You get this team healthy, get that rotation down, get the shooting a little bit of confidence, and I like these guys. For a spot at 7, I think this is a really good 7.
All right, number 6, Max's Texas A&M Aggies, who look great in a win Friday night over Ohio State. The game Wednesday was Southern, and boy, this is a gauntlet of a schedule. This is the next, 6 or 7 games after that. In order, Oregon, Creighton, San Diego State, neutral site games, Wake Forest at home, Texas Tech neutral site, and then Purdue semi-away, followed by a couple of breathers in Houston Christian and Abilene Christian, and then the SEC schedule starts. But, Max, I think we wanted to say A&M looked a lot better, and it looked a lot more like the team I think we thought we were getting before the season started.
Yeah, Phelps was a real difference maker. I think right now he's sitting 26th nationally in steal rate. I think he's got 3 steals, 2 steals in his 3 games. So, I mean, you knew you were going to get a defensive boost in the backcourt, and then that launches all of Texas A&M's transition stuff. Ohio State was due for a little bit of shooting regression. They were shooting the lights out. So for them to go on the road and shoot 8 of 30, kind of expected that. Good win. You needed it after dropping the UCF game, but I'm not putting too much into this because, boy, you mentioned it. Oregon, Creighton, San Diego State, Wake Forest, Texas Tech, Purdue. Yeah, we're going to learn a lot coming up here.
Yeah, but keep in mind, too, I know you were reading off the KenPom schedules, but keep in mind, these aren't the actual full schedules because
the tournament,
they're playing in the Players Era tournament where they're playing Oregon, Creighton, and they got another game, right? So, yeah, I mean, there's other games added to the schedule that are going to be big games, too. So we mentioned the difference in their non-conference schedule. And, if this was the team we thought it was going to be, good. This is the kind of schedule they should be playing. And now you get one back that you gave away against UCF. You beat Ohio State. So, huge win and beat Southern on Wednesday and then get ready to see how many wins you can reel off because hasn't that been the story with Texas A&M for how many years now? They get to March, they got to find wins because their non-conference resume isn't strong enough or something like that. But they have every reason as to why it should be strong enough this year. So as long as they can win some of these games, which I think they will, A&M's going to be in a strong spot, I think, heading into conference play.
At number 5, the team that actually did beat Florida State, and by the way, controlled that one from start
we
to
knew we'd get
finish.
there at some point. You got to pick
we
somebody.
knew we'd get there.
Just find somebody. Yeah.
Carry on, Blake. What do we have to say about the Florida Gators?
Yeah, the Florida Gators look good. They're scoring the ball. They're just a really, really good offensive team. Walter Clayton, my goodness, this guy. I mean, we haven't talked enough about this, but like we came in and all the Player of the Year stuff was going to be surrounded with Sears and Broome and those guys, but I think like even in the summer, Max and I pretty unanimous. We felt like we were like, hey, this is the third best player in the conference. Like if you want to pick one of those other two, like here's your third best player, and that's nothing against everybody else, but like this guy's just so good, and I mean he is doing a lot of good things for this Florida. He's doing a lot of things, period, for this Florida team right now, and so yeah, I really like this rotation, the way it's kind of working out for them. We mentioned kind of the options they have in the front court, and we're seeing just that consistency in terms of the rotation, being able to rotate in, 4 guys between 6'8" and 6'11", and not really have a huge drop-off. So, losing Samuel, losing Han Logden, we were curious how that would play out, but these guys are playing some pretty good basketball right now, and my guy Elijah Martin, who I keep bringing up, just very consistent, and so I think Florida is, it's tough because as we're going to see, like the top 4 are pretty strong, but man, I don't know that I'm going to say there's a top 4 and then there's Florida. I think this is your top 5 and 6 and maybe 7 if Arkansas gets it together, and all these teams are pretty close together potentially. So
yeah, and I always like to follow along the Florida basketball hour whenever there's a Florida game because they do such a good job at kind of catching everything of note, and it was a sloppy game. Let's not lie. 12 team assists to 19 turnovers, and you still win by 13 on the road. I mean, this offense, as good as it has been, has a lot of room for improvement. I mean, we have seen the trade-off, the Zion pulling offense for the Elijah Martin defense. The defensive efficiency is almost, I think they finished 94th last year, and right now don't put too much weight into it, but they're at 51. So, I mean, clearly the defense has improved. But you got to see that. I want to see that offense clean up a little bit. But I mean, my goodness, 98 points, 81, 86, 87. With the offense looking this sloppy, man, there's that much room for improvement. Scary offense here.
Hey, before things heat up, 1 second. So I was looking back at this, just to go back to Texas A&M real quick. I forgot that when you do look at this Players Era tournament thing, like we do remember there is a chance that Texas A&M can play Alabama in this thing. So keep that in mind, just as a note. Because I was wondering, like, so they have the 2 different groups. It's the Impact group and the Power group, right? So A&M's over there with, mentioned Oregon, Creighton, San Diego State. Alabama's on the other side with Houston, Rutgers, Notre Dame. But I think with the way it plays out, like, there is a chance, based on how it falls, that they could play each other. I mean, somebody tell me if I'm wrong, but, like, it looks that way to me. So just an interesting note there if you kind of want to look at it. Actually, you know what? Let me just give you the visual because I think this will be much better for people before we jump into things getting a little wild here in the rankings. So here you go. Here's the way it looks. So you can see kind of the potential for them to meet there, right? So how about that? Just as a little side note, you could potentially get that depending on how the games unfold. So there you go.
Gentlemen, before we unveil our number 4 team, and I don't know about this, sometimes the basketball universe just tries to tell you stuff. And I feel like it's been trying to tell us stuff all year with what's coming next. The other night, I'm sitting watching my 10-year-old son open a pack of baseball cards. Do you know what he pulls out of his pack of baseball cards? The state of Kentucky is what he pulled.
Wow.
Would you like to know about Kentucky? This says Kentucky is a state of vast coal deposits which along with agriculture, make up much of its economy for decades. This rural economy has led to the evolution of a unique Kentucky culture marked by its hearty embrace of bluegrass and country music and also basketball. That's my note. Gentlemen, how can we disrespect the Cats by putting them all the way down? I'm telling you, they're trying to tell us. They're trying to tell us. We're just not listening.
Let them go.
Speaking of coal, Christmas time is coming up a month away from now, folks. And if you think someone needs to receive coal in their stockings, I present to you 2 people who are on the screen right now, both sitting to my left. Chris Lee, Max Barr. Because these guys thought that Kentucky should be sitting here at the number 4 spot. Please explain yourselves, gentlemen, because I have moved Kentucky all the way up to number 2 in my rankings. But I want to know how you can justify the Kentucky Wildcats, who just came off beating the all-time Space Jam, Monstars, Duke Blue Devils. They have just looked fantastic to this point. So I need you to justify yourselves for Kentucky at number 4. I'll sit back. I'll listen to your arguments. We'll get into closing arguments, and then I'll make a verdict on whether I think you're telling the truth. All right? Please continue.
You first, Max.
Oh, I thought that was going to happen.
Chris has nothing to say, so he's like, Max, go, maybe I can come up with something, because I don't have a reason for it. So,
when everybody sent in their rankings over this weekend, I knew we were going to get this. I knew this was going to come, and I'll be honest, I do not have much of a rebuttal. Kentucky, if you want to rank them 2, there is very much reason so. The only reason I had them at 4 is because when we try to, split hairs in power rankings, I like to go to the old who would be favored on a neutral floor.
mm-hmm.
And for me personally, I believe that Alabama, Tennessee, and Auburn on a neutral floor would be favored, maybe slightly, over Kentucky. That is all. That is all. I understand the number 2
Can
ranking.
I interject?
Yes.
Your Honor would like to interject here. Okay. So if they would all be favored over Kentucky on a neutral court, right? You're saying Alabama, Auburn, and Tennessee. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay. How many teams would Duke be favored over of those 3?
I don't like where you're going with this.
I'm just asking. Because Kentucky just beat Duke on a neutral court. I'm just asking.
This doesn't fit my narrative.
Season? Okay.
It doesn't fit my narrative.
I'm just asking. So, anyways, please continue. The defense.
Chris, I've been
continue.
debunked. I've been debunked. You go.
Can we get in the editing process? Can I get a big red thing that says debunked right after that? Like, just throw it on the screen. Now we're on to the next one. Please, your turn, Chris.
Judge Judy.
Mm-hmm.
I know that only 2 of the 3 of us in this conversation believe defense counts. Well, one of them doesn't. You look at defense. Is Kentucky number 1 in defense in the SEC? No, that's Tennessee, according to KenPom. Is it number 2? No, that's Auburn. Is it number 3? No, that's Arkansas.
Okay.
What about 4? No, that's A&M. What
ready
about
for
number
this.
5? That's Texas.
I'm ready.
What about number 6? That's Mississippi State.
That's great.
Kentucky's all the way down there at 7 in defense, Your Honor. That's my argument.
Okay. Where'd you have Arkansas this week?
Buddy, It's like being Jeffrey Dahmer's defense attorney.
Where
When
did
you're
you have
called
Arkansas
upon, you
this
got to
week?
give an answer.
I'm just
whether
curious.
you believe it or not.
They're the third best defensive team in the conference. Where'd you have Arkansas?
I rest my case.
Oh, where'd you have Vanderbilt? They're the worst defensive team in the conference. Did you have them 16th? No. Anyways,
I knew this was gonna
Kentucky
happen.
fans, here's the deal.
He's
all right?
gloating. Look at him.
I was low
just
on
let
you.
him go.
I was lower on you than these two guys were coming into the season. However, I've watched the games, all right? And I see that you are better than this 4 ranking. Now, here's the deal, okay? Because we've had this state of court here, if you come out and lose to Lipscomb on Tuesday, which don't overlook
Don't
the
overlook
Bisons.
the Bisons.
Okay?
Plural.
But this is going to be Chris's ultimate revenge if Lenny Acuff brings the Lipscomb Bisons to Lexington and gets the win. So don't do that to me, or else we're going to have another, court coming up next week. Just don't do that. But anyways, that's my case for the Cats. Let's move on to the next part of this whole equation here. Chris, your card means nothing. You just ranked them at 4.
It's not my card.
All right. Continue.
my son's,
Whatever it is.
technically.
Take your
All
call
right, where
and
were we?
go home.
I don't even remember.
Number
Well, we're in
3.
the top 3. Here we
Number
go.
3. Who's
I don't
number
even know who
3?
this
I don't
is.
even remember.
Boom.
Alabama, which used to be number 1 and is now number 3. And could be
I think
number
this is
right.
my fault. I think this is my fault.
What do you mean your fault?
I'm pretty sure my ranking is the reason why they're number 3, not number 2.
Okay, well, hold on a second. I'm gonna keep going here. Explain to me why Alabama should be number 2 right now.
I have them 3.
No, but here's my point. Explain to me why they should be ahead of Kentucky. If we're
that's what
hold
you're
on, if
saying.
we're throwing out the preseason ranking, I'm the guy who said there's no chance I'm picking anybody other than Alabama at number 1 going into the season, right? I said I think they could be the best team in the country. But based on what we've seen to this point,
Well, because Alabama's got injuries. They've got injuries.
the same thing with Texas. Like, are we
Okay,
ranking
on a
Texas
neutral
higher if they have
floor.
Jamon Mark?
On a
Just
neutral
ask.
floor, who would you bet if it's Alabama versus Kentucky on a neutral floor? Money line bet. Who would you
Right
bet?
now, I'd bet
Yep.
Kentucky because Kentucky's hitting threes and Alabama's not. So I think that's my only concern, guys. Like, I get it, but are we leaning too much on the preseason stuff with Alabama?
I mean, they almost just barring a freshman 3-3-pointers in a row masterclass that happens once in a blue moon. Alabama was just hanging at a top 10 team on the road at one of the hardest places to play in the nation. I mean, I don't think that we can just dismiss them.
I'm not dismissing them. I'm just asking, should they be 4 instead of 3, instead of 2, instead of 1? That's
That's a
all.
warranted question.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
I think it's fair. I think both fan
Yes.
bases.
It pains
Believe.
me to admit this, but Blake might be right.
It's fair.
It hurts me
I'm just
right here.
Look, I'm just
to have to say
asking.
that.
Alabama, by the season's end, when they get our guy Chris Youngblood back, and the difference is, right, they're not making shots right now, and that will come. We said it. Like, this is not a bad team, and I'm halfway just leaning into the judge, portion of this discussion here, but I'm just having fun with you guys. I think Alabama's really good, and like Max said, come on, they had their opportunities to beat Purdue on the road. It didn't happen. You had an all-timer game from a couple guys, and so am I overly concerned with Alabama? No, but I'm just playing it within the context of our rankings this week. So
I honestly, I think you're right. I do. I think you're right. I think we should have Kentucky higher based on forgetting the preseason rankings, just based on what we've seen. I think you're right, but the weight and expectation of the preseason stuff sticks with me, I guess.
Well, all kidding aside, that's why I had Alabama higher than Kentucky. I'm not willing to throw it away after a loss at a place where pretty much nobody goes to win. But based on what they've done so far, Kentucky's had a better season. So, I mean, look, we're 2 weeks in, and Everybody's playing Mississippi Valley State. So
This
what
is
do we
good
know?
stuff. This is good stuff.
Where's Alabama ranked defensively, Chris?
How
In your
bad would
SEC
Alabama beat
defensive
Mississippi
rankings?
Valley State? That's how we settle arguments around here.
I
isn't it?
agree. Well, I mean, I don't know what you're setting the number at, but it's probably pretty high. So, anyways, all right, we're having fun here. Let's move to the Vols at number 2. We know the Vols are number 2.
I mean, guys, defense is the thing that Tennessee always hangs its hat on. It's Austin Peay, but Tennessee did break the 100-point barrier on Sunday. I mean,
Chris, I don't think it's
scored
just
90 something
Austin
against
Peay.
Montana. Yeah,
Austin Peay's good.
right.
They beat Butler. Austin Peay went to Butler and beat Butler in their first true road game. For Tennessee to smack them around, put up 103, that's not just like, oh, it's just Austin Peay. That's an impressive win. And Igor Milicic has been absolutely on fire. He's one of the most efficient scorers in the SEC right now. I'm very impressed. Blake, I think you are too.
Tennessee's a top 25 3-point shooting team, and
Wow.
I think that is something to me that really stands out so far
Wow.
because they're not shooting a lot of them, but they're very efficient, and I think that's the name of the game with Tennessee offensively. Like anytime we picked on them in the Rick Barnes era, it's usually like, they just went 0 of 11 in the last 5 minutes, but they're a lot more efficient so far, and I keep saying I think it's just one of those things where. I mean, Zakai Ziegler, how many assists has he got on the year? Like, if you look at the numbers, like, I'm trying to see what the full number is. Like, he's got 8, 7, 7, 9, like, in 4 games. So he's averaging, 7.5 assists, whatever that is. And so, like, that's perfect because he is able to distribute to other guys. We know he's going to score too. But, I mean, they just put up 103 with Chaz Lanier scoring 5 points. You know? I mean...
They put 6
Like-
guys in double figures, and one of them wasn't Cam Carr, and one of them wasn't Chaz Lanier.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, like, so I'm just saying, like, they're
Without Dubar.
no Dubar, who we thought was going to be a big impact offensively for this team too, and so, yeah, like, I just think Tennessee is a well-oiled machine. I said coming the season, we want to talk about difference of opinions. Like I said, I was getting lower on Tennessee because I just didn't know how the offense was going to look, but after 4 games, their competition is going to pick up too pretty soon in terms of like playing teams that are closer to them more consistently. But yeah, I mean, so far, how can you not be impressed with them? They turned the ball over a little bit. That's probably the biggest knock you could say. But defense, I mean, it's going to be top 5. We said they come in the season. Guess what? They're 4th, right, in the country in defensive efficiency. So you just know what you're getting from them. And if the offense... The offensive numbers won't be this great the rest of the season in turn, like once you start playing better defensive teams and such. But man, they're looking good right now. So
Hey, and you know what? Chaz Lanier, he only had 5 points. He didn't make a 3, but he had 30 minutes, didn't foul once, didn't commit a single turnover, and had 4 steals. So even if you just want to look at, Chaz Lanier is not just some offensive spark plug. Clearly impacting the game in other ways.
Number 1, probably the only easy decision we had.
Yeah.
The Auburn Fighting Tigers.
You like writing that in, Chris. Fighting Tigers.
I thought I took it out this time, but I think it deserves to stay in because from the moment they got in that fight, Auburn flipped the switch.
Yeah,
in
huge
a
win
2-game
over
sample size.
Not huge win, like huge win margin wise. Over Kent State. Kent State didn't lead for a second. They did kind of close the lead down a little bit. Jalen Sullinger was hitting some threes, and Davis was playing through some foul trouble, but business as usual in the jungle. Johni Broome, double-double machine. What do you want to say about this team? They're just rolling right now.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, what else
rolling.
do you say? I mean, it's like once we get to this kind of spot in our rankings, it's just like it's Auburn. I mean, they got the Houston win. They did what they did to Kent State, but again, we talk about schedules. Next week is when things really pick up for Auburn, and they start playing that grind that they're going to have whenever they go, to Hawaii to play in the Maui, and get the road game against Duke coming out of that. So, yep. Tigers in a good spot, and I they play North Alabama tonight, which North Alabama, interesting. They just lost an overtime game against Samford. But, yeah, win that game, and there will not be a change at the top next week. So.
All right, got a big week of SEC basketball ahead. It is about to be tournament season. We're going to have all kinds of morning live streams after games, maybe even evening live streams after games. Anyway, we will come up with something at some point and a lot of it. Best way to get it, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. That helps our analytics and enable your notifications. So when we do come out with something, you'll know to join us. For Max Barr and Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee. You've been watching Southeastern 16 presented by BetOnline.